welcome back to another edition of the Heart to Heart podcast. My guest today is Jason Portnoy. So Jason is basically a financial guru who just kind of found himself into that sort of title. Didn't really start out that way, but now he's very popular on Instagram and all over the internet for just giving really good, sound financial advice. I'm very happy to have him on the show. So Jason, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me. I don't know about financial guru, but yeah, I mean, at this point, any publicity is good publicity. So let's go with financial guru.
So maybe just before I start firing questions at you, Jason, maybe you can give us just a little bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I was a poli-sci major who wanted to go to law school. Got into law school twice, declined it both times, made my parents cry. Especially when the next venture I decided to do was start a t-shirt company, right? Like, so how do you go from law school to now selling t-shirts? But even before that, I had one real job. I was in business development for a recruitment firm, and I saw how much money, the people who brought in the jobs were making, and then I saw their paychecks, and I was like, yeah, there's a big discrepancy here. I'm like, I don't like this world. I want to be my own boss. Had an idea for a t-shirt, started a clothing company, completely flopped, failed miserably, then met Daymond John, who from Shark Tank, who ended up mentoring me. Completely changed just the way I viewed business. Again, I was flying blind, no clue about business, had no mentors in this space until then. Decided to relaunch, did it properly, was in over 250 stores across North America, had a bunch of celebrities and athletes wearing it, like our mutual friend Brandon Prust, who was a big supporter. And then I loved helping people build their businesses and their brands. And so I launched an agency, which helped people do that from an online marketing side. I started a consulting group that helped people build their businesses. And through that, I've had my own podcast called Perfectly Mentored, where I've interviewed some of the brightest people on the planet. You've had Dave Asprey on, I've had Dave Asprey on. Like, we've some of the smartest people on the planet, where I've always been interested in financial side of things. How do you, I mean, I'm 40 years old. I want to retire in 20 years. What do I have to do? How do I do things properly? How do I not chase shiny objects and just really prepare myself? And just had a really lot of good help and a lot of good mentors teach me the way. And I just try to spit that back to other people.
Yeah, I think mentorship is a little bit of a lost art. I think it's really the best way to learn. One guy who I'd love to have on the podcast, Robert Greene or Ryan Holiday, both of those guys, talk about the importance of having a mentor and how valuable that is, and that's how you advance through life and how you ultimately succeed is not necessarily through your education, like formal academic education. Oftentimes it's through meeting someone who teaches you through experience. I think that's extremely valuable. And people sometimes don't really look at mentorship as something that's taken seriously or something that can get them to the next level. But just because you don't necessarily have anything, or you don't have anything on a piece of paper at the end to kind of like prove it, and there's no schedule and that kind of thing, it's more or less just this thing where when someone's there, you kind of listen, you absorb all the information, you make sure that you ask the right questions so that you learn the things that you're that you really want to learn. And I do think that's a little bit of a lost art. So I really appreciate the fact that you're kind of coming from that kind of background, because I think that's really the best way to do it. And you mentioned you're a mentor who's on the Shark Tank, and I think if you look at half of those guys that are on a lot of these TV shows like that Shark Tank and that, like, I think a lot of them probably don't have an MBA. I think a lot of them are just like self-taught entrepreneurs who probably had some good mentors on the way. Luck is obviously a thing that happens sometimes, meeting right people at the right time. So am I right though in saying that a lot of the people on Shark Tank and some of these other shows, like these real big entrepreneurs, like they don't always have an MBA or a business degree?
Look, I think most entrepreneurs, look at like the Forbes 100, or look at like major successful entrepreneurs. They don't have MBAs. they're self-taught, they're in the weeds. Sometimes they had no choice. But yeah, I've always been a big fan of mentorship because there's always someone who could speed up the process of which I could do something. And for sometimes, like, I have a coach, right? And I pay that coach a lot of money. But you have two currencies in life. You have time or money. I'd much rather pay money than time, and I'd much rather buy as much time as possible. So I think people just have a weird thought around that, and they sit there and say they're going to go at it alone, or they don't need help. And I think that's one of the biggest holdbacks. I think the other biggest holdback of why I think mentorship is a lost art is because people reach too high. So for example, I want a mentor, so I reach for this guy. I reach for Elon Musk. I want Elon Musk to mentor me. Elon Musk is not mentoring you. And in all honesty, Elon Musk probably couldn't mentor you because he's probably so disconnected from where you are in your stage of your entrepreneurial journey and where he is, that the advice he give you probably wouldn't even be practical anyways. You're much better off going to find someone in your local neighborhood who's done what you want to do, who's maybe even 5 to 10 years or 20 years ahead of you, but is still doing the stuff. He's still a practitioner and could help you, or he or she could help you and save you that time. But people don't want to do that. They want the big name, and sometimes those aren't the right people. Sometimes the people who you probably don't know, the guy who's living in a big house, who started a really successful business, they're probably the right person to mentor you because they know exactly the steps you need to take in order to get there.
Yeah, and the other thing with mentorship too, and this comes kind of with like teaching and coaching in general, is that when something comes very, very naturally to someone,
Hmm.
they're often actually not that good of a teacher or a mentor because they didn't really have to learn anything. They just had that ability.
It's the Michael Jordan, Steve Kerr example, right? So Michael Jordan,
Exactly.
awful coach, because what's he going to say? Just go there, spin around, fade away, and hit your shot. I don't understand why can't you do that? Because he's just so good and professional, versus a guy like Steve Kerr who had to work for his spot. He had to grind. He had to play different roles. He had to figure out what his role would be on a team and understand team chemistry. He understands the game a lot better that could then teach it. Sometimes the most skill you have, like, you're just so disconnected because it's so effortless for you. It's your first language that it's so hard to speak to someone.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Like even in, like I was talking about with one of my friends in MMA the other day as well. And he said, like, some guys who are they're just so good that like they're not very good coaches. They just kind of like know how to fight naturally.
Yeah. They
But
see they see things so different that they don't even know how to interpret what they're seeing, right? It's like, I just see, like, you hear this with athletes all the time, and sit there and say everything just slowed down. Everything was coming easy. Like MMA fighters, I just saw his punches. His punches were just coming so slowly. I'm able to move and dodge and weave and whatnot. And you can't teach that. That's
yeah, that's exactly. You just said it. You can't teach that. There's certain things that you can teach. And I would even argue that like, the guy who has, failed a couple times and then has succeeded, he would probably be a much better mentor because he's going to know the mistakes that you're going to make, because he's made them himself or she has made them herself. And because of that, you're probably going to have a better experience. You're probably going to get, better advice overall.
and you'll also be better off also. Like, I know Daymond John, for example, he talks about this all the time, where he likes investing in businesses where the owner has failed before, because they now have some sense of like, they're hungry. They're hungrier. They're
Yeah.
mad. They have a chip on their shoulder. They want to go. And they're willing to listen. That's the most important thing. You could hire the best coach, the best mentor in the world, but what you can't teach is, I do a lot of coaching. I have a coaching program, and one thing that I was taught very early on is, if you want it more than your client wants it, it's never going to work. So the same way, whatever coach you have, if they want it more than you do, it's not going to work. And if you're not going to listen to them, it's never going to work anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And, I did want to ask you, a few specific financial questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
One of the ones, again, we were talking at the show. So yeah, part of the reason why, like I said, I've been following you for a couple of years now, but yeah, we do have a mutual friend in Brandon Prost, and he kind of sent a video of you explaining life insurance that I thought was, very illuminating to me, because generally speaking, when you think of life insurance, you think of this is money that, can't be utilized ever in my own life. It's going to be for, for my family and for after I'm dead, basically. Like it's never going to be used for me during my own life. And then, during your video, you kind of explain that that's like not the case at all. That there's several different things that you can do with life insurance. So, for people who are, planning to retire early, or just, planning to make good financial decisions, why do you think they should maybe invest in life insurance, and should they start at like a really young age? Like I'm 37, which is, relatively young-ish, I guess, for some people in terms of starting life insurance. But you may think that you should maybe start life insurance at 27. So why would somebody maybe want to make that decision?
So I'll address the young part first, and then I'll walk into it a little bit. I have two, um, and this is going to sound a bit weird, and I understand the thought rationale of why people don't do it, but I have two life insurance policies. I have two little kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I have two life insurance policies on them. And it's not a policy that if, God forbid, they pass away, I get paid. It is a forced savings plan. It is an investment vehicle for them that by the time they're 18, they'll have $100,000. I could even pay myself back for everything that I took from them when they're 20, and then give them a policy that's completely paid up for, that they'll have when 36, and that could be a down payment for a house. So I'm giving them a gift. It has nothing to do with that. And I think, when you tell people, when I first told people, yeah, I have two life insurance policies on my kids, their first thought was like, that's a bit creepy. And I'm like, no, but you don't get it. And now I think that's a good segue into understanding exactly what I did with the life insurance policy. I did not make this up. It's called the infinite banking system. It's been around for a long, long time. And I think the problem is a lot of insurance brokers don't want to talk about it because they don't make good commission off of it, right? This isn't their best commission. And a lot of people don't know about it because they view life insurance policy as a safety measure. I died, my wife's taken care of, and we have all that. That's term insurance. I have that if God forbid something happens to me, my wife's taken care of. We have critical illness. We have all the things that cover us if God forbid something happens to us. But our biggest and most expensive policies are what's called whole life insurance policies. In the States, I think they have IULs. I don't really know if Canada we have IULs, but it's completely different. We're talking about whole life insurance policy, where
Is
it
it
becomes
401k in the States? Is
no.
that
So 401ks are for savings plan. They have what's called, I don't know their insurance, but they have what's called an IUL, which is a little bit different. I don't know a ton about the IULs, but I know that it operates completely different than the whole life. But pretty much the essential part of the whole life insurance policy, as infinite banking system, or as a bank on yourself, it's also called, or be your own bank, BYOB. There's, what that kind of teaches you is just do what all the wealthy did and understand the power of compound interest. So Warren Buffett, says he attributes a lot to his wealth, but the number one thing is the power of compounding. Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, and he who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And you just have to understand, you bring your money to the bank. Let's talk. I bring my money to the bank. I give them $100. They're going to sit there and say, maybe here's one, and I'll be super extreme. I'm going to give you 1% interest on your money, Jason. You keep your $100 in the bank. Now, what they do is they then take my $100 and they go lend it out to someone for 8% interest and make a 7% spread on me, right? Because they're paying me 1%, but they're making 8%. They're getting 7%. That's kind of how that's how the banks work, right? That's pretty much how they make their money, by taking your money and lending it out to other people. It's the same reason why if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, you cannot walk in there that day and sit there and say, give me your money. Or give me all my money. I want to take out all my money. They'll sit there and say, no, we need like 5 days, or we need 48-hour notice. Why? Because they have to move it around. They don't have your money. They lend it. It's all lent out. That's where they make their money. So whole life insurance policy, you have what's called a guaranteed death benefit, and you have your cash value. So the death benefit is pretty much, this is what I get paid if I, if I die. I was trying to look for a nicer way to say die, but let's be honest. If I die, if the doctor could say die, I could say die.
I'm a doctor, so I just
if the doctor could say die, I as a guest on your show, I could say die. So, so you have you have the guaranteed benefit, and you have what's called the cash value. So the cash value keeps growing. and it compounds over time. So you're paying every single year. And in some policies, maybe after 3 years, your cash value will exceed the amount that you've already paid in. In some policies, depending on how you orchestrate it, you could have a pay 20, you could have a pay for the rest of your life. And then that just affects how fast your cash value will exceed what you put into it. And so the cash value could either be taken out, right? So you could have what's called the cash, like the surrender, you take it out, and you could either take out everything and then kill your policy, or you could take out what's part of the cash value and then it just restarts at zero. So for example, I'm paying in every single year and now my cash value is $30,000. I can sit there and say, I just want the $30,000 cash. Cool, the policy starts up. And this is what I was saying, like with my kids. So by the time they're 20 and the policy is paid off, I can sit there and say, you know what? I'm going to take all the money back that I paid up for this policy. I'm going to pay that. I'm going to take that out, and you'll start at zero, but you're starting at zero at 20. And you don't have to pay another cent again because it's paid up 20. So it keeps going, keeps rolling. And they have a policy that's paid up for them. So in 20 years from now, when they're 40, they'll have $100,000 or $200,000 in their account that they can now either pull out themselves and restart the policy, or buy another policy, or kind of do it. So I think you should start as early as possible with this, because the whole goal is to become your own bank. Now, perfect example. I want to go get a Tesla, right? Tesla, $75,000, $100,000, whatever you want to call it. And so I could go to the bank. I have two options. I could go to the bank and I could take out $100,000 from my bank and say, thank you. I could go to take out a line of credit and say, thank you, and pay it off. I could lease the car, right? Those are all the options. Or I could go to my life insurance policy that has a cash value of $150,000 in it. And now I borrow against the cash value. So instead of pulling out the money, I now sit there and say, I want to take a loan, and I call my life insurance policy. It's not done. It's done through them. You call your life insurance policy, say, I want to take a loan out of my cash value. All right. How much of the cash value do you want to take a loan out for? Everything. All right, cool. Well, you have $100,000 in cash value. You want to take a loan to that? Sure. No problem. We're going to charge you 6% interest. Cool. Meanwhile, because I don't take it out and it's a loan against it, technically the cash is still in the account.
So it's still accumulating interest.
So it's now compounding 5%, 5%, 5% year over year. It's still compounding and growing, which is the difference of why you don't want to take it out of your own bank account. Because one, it's your money and then it's gone. Nothing's growing. Here I have the policy still growing. And not only that, I now go buy my Tesla and I sit there and say, Tesla, on a 4-year lease, what would you have leased it to me for? They're like 7%. Cool. I go and pay myself 7%. I have now leased the car back to myself. So now I'm paying my policy the same amount back that I would have before. The policy is charging me 6%. I'm paying 7%. I now get that money back paid up faster, and I'm in. The same way you owe money on a credit card, right? Start building up your life insurance, start building up that cash value, pay off your credit card from the cash value, because 18% versus 5%, I'd much rather pay 5% interest or 6% interest than 18%. And now the 18% that you were going to pay Visa, MasterCard, or Amex anyways, pay that back to your life insurance policy. And meanwhile, it's still growing and you're still making money. And that's how you become your own bank. Same way I could go and then buy real estate. I could do everything for it and have my money grow while my money's still growing, and I make that spread. So as long as I take out a loan, I want to invest, Doc, you come to me and say, hey, Jason, I got a real estate investment. I think we should go into it together. Cool, no problem. Instead of me taking out money and then just paying interest on that loan or whatever it is, I now go to my life insurance policy, take it out. I pay 6%. You're sitting and telling me we're going to make 12%. I have a 6% spread every single year. But not only that, you're like sitting there saying, yeah, but 6% is not great. Well, it's probably the same amount you would have made on a loan anyways from the bank. But aside from that, my money's still growing inside there. So you have that spread plus the compounding effect. And that's the power of a whole life insurance policy.
Okay. I think that explains it very, very well. That was a good detailed explanation. So basically, like if you have, $100,000 in your life insurance policy, you can take that out as a loan against your life insurance policy. So you have that cash to spend on whatever you want to spend it on. And then that is still going to accrue compounding interest each year.
Yeah. And not only that, when you're like 70 or 60 or whatever, if you have a life insurance policy that has a big like death benefit or whatever, you could actually bring that to the bank and sit there and say, hey, I want to take out a loan and my collateral is my life insurance. Right. So if you have a $3
Oh,
million
okay.
death benefit, they'll give you sometimes up to 90% of that. Right. So you'll get 2 million plus, right, as a loan, and the bank doesn't care because it's the ultimate insurance policy for them. They're super happy to give you that because it's not on a house where if real estate goes down, it's on you're gonna die. I know for sure one day, we know one thing for sure in life is one day we're all going to die. The bank sits there and
100%.
says, great, you'll pay me interest till the day you die. We're super happy with that. And when you die, we get paid first because we're first in line with that life insurance. So great. 3 million, we'll pay ourselves back our 2 million. There's 1 million left over for your family. Call it a day. So, the people I know who do this really well have multiple insurance policies. You could do this inside your corporation. I know people who literally have who bought the car that they want, and then either to the business or to themselves from the business, leased it back to themselves at a profit. So they actually got paid to
Wow.
drive their like Aston Martin and whatnot because they leased it back at a higher interest rate. So the insurance policy is 6%. They charged 8%. They made a 2% spread while everything was growing, and that 2% over time they actually got paid to drive the car that they wanted to get.
That's insane. And
The whole
so,
thing is really just be your own bank. Don't be dependent on any bank.
yeah, no, I love that idea of being your own bank. And for people listening, if they're very interested in what you just discussed, what should they ask their broker? Who should they go to in order to kind of get this policy?
So first thing I'd say is ask your insurance broker if they understand the infinite banking system. If they don't, not the right broker for you to do this. And there's
Okay.
plenty across Canada and the US who do, who understand this. They're really also good financial advisors who understand accounting as well, and how to utilize this and all the gray zones and the amazing stuff you could do. Obviously in the US, you have way more tax loopholes than we do in Canada. But I would ask them if they know what the infinite banking system is. If they don't, no, not the right person. And a lot of them are going to try to get you to not do it because it's more expensive than term insurance. It's less commission. And they don't understand that as an investment vehicle. So, but if they understand it, say, cool, I want you to design a policy for me. This is what I want. And you ask them questions about it and quiz them, but it's literally any whole life insurance policy. So whether that's, I mean, if you're in Canada, you have Equitable, you have Manulife, you have Sun Life, you have so many of these people, Great West Life that could do all this. It's any literally whole life insurance policy. It's just how it's designed. It's designed for this purpose versus you actually protecting family.
Okay. And that question, like, do you understand the infinite banking system, is very, very important. Like right there, and then you should kind of know whether or not this person knows what
Well,
you're
if your
talking
insurance
about.
broker sits there and says like, no, what is that? You know, you don't want to be the one teaching your insurance broker what to do here, right? Like it's not a good position to be in. And even now I still learn. Like I have a financial advisor who understood this, and they first showed it to me and they were telling me about it. And now since then I've met people who do this really, really well, who introduced me to even smarter people who understand many different ways you could go about it. But the most important thing is start young and start building this, because the longer you wait, the longer you're waiting for that cash value to accumulate inside there. So start young. I think, people ask me whether I think about RRSPs or retirement accounts or RESPs for the kids and whatnot. Cool. Like certain education plans are guaranteed and the government will give it to you. But this gift that I'm giving my kid, if they don't want to go to school, if let's say they want to do something else, they know what they want to do in life and they're not a deadbeat dropout or whatever it is, I'm giving them probably the best gift that I could possibly give any kid. Like imagine you're 20 and starting off with $100,000
That's insane.
to go start life. They could pay the tuition. They could take that 100,000 and now go buy 3 more policies like this. So by the time they're 40, they have $300,000 and $400,000 to play with that invest and grow. So that's why I'm a big fan of this.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. I was wondering too, what are your thoughts on real estate overall? Like, are you do you have a percentage of like, this is how much you should invest in real estate. This is how much should be in Bitcoin. This is how much should be in, life insurance. Like, is there any kind of formula that you have, or?
I mean, everyone in life is so different, and I'm so cautious to give advice even on life insurance policy. Everyone's different, and you just got to start with what's in your means.
Yeah,
Um, I know people who don't have a lot, and they sat there and said, "No, I don't want to start the whole life," but then they'll put all their money in crypto and chase it, and chase like and all these different coins and
yeah,
whatnot, and lose it all. I'm not the right person to ask about crypto, because when I finally decided to make the jump is when everything crashed. So like I'm like the killer. I like killed everything there. Um, I'm a big believer in the blockchain, and the more, and by no means am I an expert or even close to it. I'm still learning a lot about it, but um, I understand the importance of it. The same reason why I said, hey, you can't walk into your bank tomorrow and say give me $100,000. I could do that right now with my Bitcoin. Right, my $100,000, my $100,000. Although now a lot of these places are getting hard to cash your money out of, right? So a lot of these
yeah,
things are happening. I think we're not quite there yet. I mean, the speed at which, if I was going to send you Bitcoin, I can just transfer it to you, it's not easy. It's not an easy process. So I think we're a little bit off from there. But in terms of real estate, I mean, there's nothing. I'm still learning and getting started in the real estate game.
yeah,
And I'm really heavily trying to learn a lot more about it, because I think that's where ultimate wealth is. You look at all these people, they didn't make their wealth in the stock market. And full discrepancy, I'm 90+% cashed out of the market right now. Just because I think what's going to hit us, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think we've seen the worst. I think we're going to get hit very, very hard. I think there's bad times coming. um, and whether that lets me dollar cost average my way back into the market, or gives me money to go in real estate, which I think is slowly starting to drop, because as interest rates go up, that's usually what happens. Or figure out, or buy more life insurance policy. But right now, out of all the investments I have, there's only one that's been the most sound, and that's been my life insurance policy.
yeah.
Hasn't gone down, and it paid me my compounding interest every single year, and I have my cash value in there, and a lot of the life insurance policies are backed by the government, so you don't have to
Yeah.
worry.
I think more people need to hear conversations like this because the younger generation, I mean, they're full on into like crypto and so I had a guy John Ballas on here 3 times. He's a pretty big Bitcoin guy, but he hates basically all of the coins. He says every other coin is a shit coin, you
Yep.
know. And but he's right though in the fact that like, it's just pure gambling when you're getting into these other coins. And we won't get into Bitcoin like too much more, but like, for him, the reason why he got into it so hard and why I like Bitcoin, it is for not necessarily just for like, monetary reasons. It's the fact that like in 1971 we implemented this gold standard, and
Hmm.
the gold standard right now, it worked pretty good for a few decades. It seems to be kind of failing right now. So his kind of belief is that like if we're gonna like use something else as a gold standard, it seems like Bitcoin would be the next thing. But like that's still like a big if, like the gold standard has been on here for again since 1971, so for over 50 years. And I don't know if people are gonna buy into Bitcoin where it's gonna like replace it. It's that would be I mean that would literally be like the biggest move in human history, if we like replaced gold with a Bitcoin. So I don't know if that's something that's like gonna happen soon, but that's the only reason why I have a little bit into Bitcoin. I'm not like crazy on it, but that's why I don't invest in any other coins like whatsoever. I just do Bitcoin only because I do understand it a little bit. And again, I'm not saying like Mother Teresa or anything like that, but I
Yep.
think that there are people who buy Bitcoin for that purpose. They do think that it's going to make ultimately like the world a better place, and that it'll result in like less like governmental control overall. But the powers that be are the powers that be, and they have a lot of power. And when people get scared, they're going to pull money out of their Bitcoin. So it is something that is, I think it's gonna, I hope it's gonna go like this, for people watching. I'm sort of just, or listening, I'm just kind of,
I think
a small staircase that goes up and down.
when I learned about crypto, it was two coins, right? It was Ethereum and Bitcoin. Those are the only two places you really want to put your money. Anything else is a gamble. Like, so I own some like crappy coins that are now like pretty much worthless, but very, very little money, and it's play
Yeah.
money. It's money that if I lost at the casino table, I'd be okay with too, right? I went in there knowing. I also went in there knowing that anything I'm doing in the crypto space right now is such a gamble that I don't even, it's not like the stock market where I want to check it every single day. I'm going to let this ride for 10 years and check, and in 10 years have the conversation, because it's either going to be adapted and it went to zero, which I was okay with, or I was riding the wave.
And just
Bitcoin.
on one note too of that, just one, that's something that's I
Sure.
think important, is like the market, is open like 9:30 to 4 o'clock. Like that's the Canadian Stock Exchange hours, Monday to Friday. Bitcoin is 24/7.
Yep.
Like that shit can be bad for your mental health, right? So like you can't be out on a dinner on a Friday or a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon and check the stock market and see that, shit just like tanked and dropped, whereas with Bitcoin, you can, be going away on a honeymoon with your wife or something on a Friday or a Saturday night, and then all of a sudden, boom, like, everything just like crashes. So like I like the fact that, the stock market is only during, normal working hours, so to speak. Whereas
Well,
like
yeah, yes
Bitcoin,
and no, because you have like after hours, like where you'll see something's
true.
closed,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden like it crashed in after hours. But I mean, Ethereum, the reason why, so the way I looked at it and the way it was taught to me was there's two, right? You have Bitcoin and Ethereum. Ethereum is more in use, right? So it's practicality. You're buying NFTs. It's more transactional than Bitcoin is. If you
Mhm.
wanted to buy, if you wanted to get into the crypto space and be passive, Bitcoin's the way to do it. If you want to be a bit more active, then it's Ethereum. And the goal was for the people who were trading NFTs, and this is before everything crashed, but when they were trading, the goal was net ETH. How do I accumulate more ETH? So how do I buy something with my ETH and then flip it and then make more ETH and then bank as much ETH as possible? And if you listen to like a lot of the experts, they'll think you have Bitcoin enthusiasts who believe Bitcoin could go to 1 million. There's no reason why in their mind it won't go to 1 million. And then you have the people in ETH who think you're looking at like 10,000. Like if it will probably go to around 10,000. And that was before everything came down. So that's the way I looked at it, and I sat there and said, okay, cool. Don't know a lot about this. I think we're very, 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 very early on in the space.
Yeah,
Um,
I did too.
and I could spend hours and days researching and learning about it, or I could just, take a gamble and be really passive in this game. And it's either going to go to zero, or it's not. And I would say this with any investment you make, right? Whether it's in the market or not. I always say, like, how much are you prepared to lose, right? Because that's a possibility. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Nothing's for sure. So
Except for life insurance.
that's the closest. Yeah. But I mean, and real estate over a long period of time just has proven that way. But it all depends on the life stage that you're at and where you're at. I know a lot of people who just, they bought in on the hype, right? Their favorite celebrities are pushing it, right? You have Matt Damon and you have Mark Wahlberg and you have all these guys in crypto.com commercials pushing all this. It's become that where it's almost people jumped in as almost FOMO. And
Yeah.
that's not a good
Yeah.
reason to make an investment, right? You should be educated in your investment. Otherwise, it is gambling. And for me, pure honesty, it's gambling for me. The Bitcoin, Ethereum is a gamble. Now I believe in it slightly enough to make that gamble, but it's still a gamble. But when I invest in the market, I want to invest in companies I know and I believe in and understand. I'm not going to invest in something I don't understand. So I understand life insurance. I understand in principle how real estate works. I understand how certain companies on the market work, like an Apple, for example, sound company. I understand cash flows. I understand what that looks like. But I'm never just going to go in and be like, oh, cool. Like these guys say buy this stock. I'm going to go in and just throw all my money at it. That's not investing. That's gambling. And I think if you're trying to build a retirement and trying to build wealth doesn't come from gambling. It comes from investing.
Yeah, and I think too, you made another important point too. Like when you're investing in a company, for me, like the most important thing is looking at the board and looking at the people involved in the
Mm,
company. Like, are these like I obviously like the product of what they're doing is incredibly important, and you want to make sure that they are building a good product or putting out a good product or whatever it is that they're doing. But the people involved, like, are they people who have done it before? Are they people of integrity? Are they people that, when the stock goes up, are they just gonna, sell all the shares? Is it just gonna be, a pump and dump? These are the things that I think that are really, really important to look at. And like that's for me anyway, that's the thing that makes me feel most comfortable about investing in a company is the people involved and their history. And I think you should know everything that you can about the people involved in the company and their history before you make that financial decision. And like making a decision like you said just because like your favorite celebrity like endorsed it, I mean that's just completely ridiculous and insane. Like it's insane that anybody would do that. And I think it's a much better strategy, like I said, to look at the people involved, see what they've done in the past, whether they've done it before, also too their integrity and their character, like I said, because you don't want to get involved in a pump and dump deal and where you can you can go to jail for that kind of thing, right? So it's I think that's the most important thing to look at when you are investing in a particular company.
but the problem is everything you're saying involves work, and most people, look, I run an agency, so I've audited and I've seen the back end of so many different businesses, and I've spoken to so many different business owners, and I'm shocked sometimes at just how like these business owners have no concept about their business. Like if I was investing in their company, I'd be like, awesome company, but you would have to leave the CEO. In my head, that's what I think, because they don't understand their business. But I think going back to the work, people don't want that. We live in a world of instant gratification, of get rich quick. If you look at anything that's being sold to you, the 3-day abs, right? The 4-hour work week, everyone's just trying to get quick. So yeah, it's marketing. You hire a celebrity and you show them celebrities doing it and you get their money. And what does that do? I want that celebrity lifestyle. And if they're doing it and that's how they're getting rich, I should do it. No, they get rich by filming movies and away from their family for 6 months at a time and really grinding it out and working 10-hour days plus filming a movie. You don't take so much, don't take things away from them, that they put in hard work to do it. um, and I think just people are constantly searching for what's that next easy step for me, what's that next easy button that I could press. And I think crypto has become that, when everyone's sitting there saying and flaunting how much money they have. And that's the problem with social media too, right? Social media
Yeah.
is incredible. You're listening to this podcast, you could think my life is incredible and be like, oh man, Jason's in. You have no context into anything I'm saying on this podcast. You don't know what my hidden motives are. I could be tied into all the insurance companies and pushing it. I'm not. I actually have invested in these things, but that's something you get on social media. When you see people's lifestyles, you have no context into what they're doing, what their real day-to-day is, what their struggle at home is, what happens when the camera's off, where they're actually financially. You just see the presentation of them and you get so enamored with it that you just like, I got to follow their direction. Jason went all in on Bitcoin, I'm going all in on Bitcoin and doing all
Yeah.
that, which is why I preface everything by saying I don't think I'm a financial guru. I just happen to speak to a lot of really smart people who taught me the way. And I recommend you do the same. You listen to everything I said about whole life insurance. And if you doubt it, and trust me, there are a lot of people who, when I posted this video, that one of those videos on TikTok, I think it had like 500,000 views and a ton of comments like, don't do this, don't do this. But they're usually all with people with no avatar picture. And those are usually the broke people who don't understand what I'm saying anyways. And,
For the
and
bots.
yeah, and they don't know anything. They're just trying to say it. But talk to people who don't talk to those people. Talk to people who have actually done this and research it. Read the books about infinite banking systems. See if that even makes sense to you. Look about, and then go learn and do it. Like I said, it's an investment. It's not a gamble. It's not a get rich quick. It's a long game approach. But I mean, you become your own bank, and I think that's awesome. But again, it just goes back to everything you said was spot on. The problem is people don't like doing any work, and they're just like, what's the easy button for me to make money. And usually those people, they end up losing it all.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And you don't want to get yourself into that situation. And like you said, like you need to do the work. Like, I'm always reading, and I do want to, ask you about a particular book. So I just read it recently. I thought it was awesome. And you want to surround yourself with the right people. Like, you're not just gonna like learn, how to become a financial guru just through like, passively like talking to people, or just through general life experiences. Like, you have to go out and seek it. You have to talk to financial advisors, you have to talk to accountants, you have to talk to business owners, you have to read books, you have to listen to podcasts
And
like
yeah,
this.
and you have
you
to
know?
start, right? Like I had Grant Cardone on the podcast. I told him, I said, if someone has $5,000, how do they get invested in real estate? Because it's a long way from that 5,000 to owning $1 billion,
Yeah,
right? And his response to me was, well, it's still a lot closer than having no money, right? So
yeah,
which is a great answer, and it's the truth, right? Like you have to get started. And if you think that 5,000 is going to make you $1 billion tomorrow, no, you may lose that 5,000, but the education you got from it, be like, okay, why did I lose this 5,000? Oh, because this happened wrong. This happened wrong. Okay, I'm going to go into my next deal, and now I know those things. Now you're a bit sharper for the next deal. If you look at everything, I think people have horrible money mindsets. I think that's a whole
yeah,
other conversation, but people have a horrible concept and mindset around money. Um, and if you look at it that way, being like, okay, well, what did I learn from this mistake? All right, cool. How do I do it? Which is why, like I said in the beginning, I pay. Like I rather pay for speed, because I'd much rather spend my money, fail miserably, and figure out, okay, cool. Now I could pivot and change my ways, and I can make all that money back, versus slowly bleeding it out over time, wondering, is this a good idea or is it not? But you have to learn, you have to do research, and then you eventually have to just taste and put money in. Like I got tired of talking about Bitcoin, and people would ask me, do you have any money in Bitcoin? I'm like, no. And I'm like, okay, let me put some skin in the game, and now let me start talking about it, right? Because now I'm invested, whether that's $1,000 or $100,000. You have to get started, and you have to slowly start tasting things, and you have to make mistakes. So dollar cost average your way into things, learn things a little bit more. You could read everything from here to tomorrow, but if you never take action on it and you never have any experience, it doesn't really matter what you read.
yeah. I completely agree on that topic, though. If you
Sure.
were to select like, a book for people to read to maybe get started on money, what would you pick? And the reason I ask that is because I read a book recently. You probably heard of it before, called The Psychology of Money. Morgan Housel, I think,
Yep.
is his name.
Great book.
Yeah, I thought it was like unbelievable. And like the mindset, he's talking about, how people have different mindsets of money in that book. And like, I can even see it for like myself, because like, I had, one deal that worked out just like incredibly well. And then so now I have this like expectation sort of that like, things are always going to, be like that. But it's like, okay, no, you don't have to, you can't expect everything to go up by 10 or 20x. Like if you make like 1.5 times your money, like that might be also a good time to pull out. Like you can't just expect this. But you know so in some ways that may be like a detriment, even though it's like, oh, but like how can that be a detriment when you 10 or 20x your money on a deal? It's like, yeah, but now I have this like insane expectation, and it's unrealistic that like all these deals are going to work out like this. And that kind of really resonated with me in the book. And I think that that's something that a lot of people can kind of learn from, is they need to take a time just to understand like where their financial mindset came from and why. And a lot of people, including myself, don't do that. And then when you don't do that, you're sort of making these decisions, not based upon all the best information available.
Well, I think people are way too emotional when it comes to money. Money is replaceable. It's replenishable. I think they should be more emotional with their time, and what they do with their time than they are with their money. And I think it's the reverse. And I think that's why a lot of people have really bad money mindsets. But I mean, let's break what you just went through for the common person who's invested in the market over the last 5 years, right? They saw crazy
Yeah.
returns. Someone asked me the other day, what's the hardest part, buying or selling in the market?
Selling.
Selling. And people don't think that anyone could figure out, you could buy in anytime and figure it out. Selling, there's so many emotions that come to selling. So
Agreed.
I'll give you a perfect example. Just had a crazy market run, right? And now it dipped. What do most financial advisors say? Just hang in there, right? Just it's over 5 years, you'll rebound again, right? And it will go up. Maybe not, maybe sooner. But if you're going to hit a recession, it could go down even more. And what do people do? They don't want to sell. Even though the portfolio from where they first bought it is now up 20% instead of 30%, they much rather watch that go down to zero and hopefully ride the wave back to it. For me, that's greed. That's such an emotional decision. You got into the market not to wait it out. And this is what I have a financial advisor. And when I told him we're selling everything, his response was, no, you're young, you could wait it out. I sat there and said, I got into the market for one reason, not to have money in the market for the next 20 years. I got in the money to make money, right? You go in there to make money. So I'm up. Yes, if I sold a year ago, I would have been up way more. But I'm up. I'm going to take my money. I'm going to say, thank you very much. I made money. I'm good. And if it collapses, I'm going to be super happy. And now I could buy back in if I want to, right? I could buy back in and I have deals and I could watch it go up and I make a ton of money, right? You want to make sure that when things are bad, you don't, like, I think it was Warren Buffett said, don't go, when it's raining, don't go outside with a thimble. Make sure you could go outside with a bathtub. The only way to do that is if you have cash flow. So if you're going to ride your money down, you can't buy in at the dip and then ride it back up. And you're assuming it's going to go back up to where it once was. And you also don't know where you're going to retire in life and when you're going to need the money in life. What happens if someone's retiring in a year from now and we're hit with a huge recession in a year from now and it's really, really bad? Well, they're much better off having their money a year ago than they are if it went down another 20 points. Now they have no money to retire. So I think people are just too emotional when it comes to that. So it's kind of what you went through. You're like, I think every deal is going to be 20%, but there's also that greed of I was up 20%. It's like the casino. You see it all the time. You had $10,000, you were up $10,000 and you started losing. Now you're up 5,000. So many people would much rather chase getting back that 10,000, getting back to that 10,000 and losing the 5,000 and even going to debt versus walking away.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's a fascinating concept. And
people just want to always sell at the very, very top. And it's like, if you bought something at 10 cents and you sold it at 15 cents or 20 cents, that's fucking amazing.
But people always want to sell it. People always want to sell at the top. The problem is they had an opportunity to sell at the top a year ago.
Yeah, like
they don't know. They don't know. They just got greedy.
Like if something goes from 10 cents say to $1, so 10x, and then all of a sudden it comes back down to like 50 cents, people won't, like, they sell, they'll consider that a failure. And it's like, no, you just 5x'd your money. Like, it wasn't a failure. Like, sure, you didn't sell at the top, but like, you can't like beat yourself up for that. And I think
if I told you you can invest in the market and no matter what, it could go up 40%, it could go up 50%, it could go 100%. But at 20%, when you're up 20%, you got to cash out. How many people in the world would sit there and say, I'll take that deal? Like, you're telling me it's going to go up 20%, and as soon as it hits 20%, I got to cash out and I don't have to worry. 100%. But when in reality, when that actually plays out, they sit there and say, what happens if it goes to 30%? Now I lost 10%. No, you didn't, you dummy. You made 20%. You didn't lose any money. You didn't have any money invested. You didn't lose. The money went up more. You could have bought back in and made another 10%. You could have done a lot of different things, but they look at it, the money missed is money is a money loss, especially when they're up. And that's where greed comes in. But you asked me a question, what's the one book that I'd recommend to anyone on finance? And for me, it's hands down. It's a book that I send to all my coaching clients. It's a book that I give to every single employee that I have when they first started. It's Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't think there's a better book for understanding the philosophy or the principles of investing, of money, and just how the wealthy really view money versus how the middle class and lower class view money. And there's such a big discrepancy between how they both view it. And it's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Okay.
Okay.
And then he
Excellent.
spun off like so many different versions of it, like Rich Dad Poor Dad Investing, Rich Dad Poor Dad How to Quit Your Job, but the first one, Rich Dad Poor Dad, so true. It teaches about assets and liabilities, teaches all about that. And you have to have some sort of basic concept of money and how to view things. Like you just said, The Psychology of Money is an incredible book. But I
Yeah.
think I would even take a step back and read this book before you even try to fix your money mindset. Because if you don't even understand how you should be viewing money, the mindset won't even make sense to you. It's like me sitting there saying, you know, I don't even know I should work out, but you're telling me now I got to learn the mindset of someone who's going to go work out. But if I don't even know that I should be working out, I think it's elementary and a must read for anyone. Starting off. Some may be basic to you if you're an investor, but I've read that book multiple times, and there's always something that I learned from it.
I got a trip coming up next week, so this is perfect time, and I'm gonna buy it and read it on the plane.
Cool.
I hate to do this, Jason, but unfortunately, we only have a couple of minutes here left. So, where can people find you online? Where can they learn more about you? Where can they learn more about how to manage their finances?
How to manage your finances? Go speak to your financial advisor and go speak to your life insurance agent. Don't come to me. I don't give financial advice. But at Jason Portnoy across all social media channels, jportnoy.com is my website. Super accessible. Just say hello.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jason. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And as always, I'll be back again next week with another episode.
Thanks for having me.